He looks like he was against
He said he never did. He was a chamber. So that's he'd be a good one. I think so.
I named so many.
I have to wear the one
Open mind. With the idea that it would help. Some stuff you can call.
The whole case of principles. I even want to print it for just so that you get your rating. How many pages?
I got it.
Oh,
The sound
that's not
system
bad.
is so bad.
I thought it was like, it looked long.
That's good, but I mean radio. Good afternoon. Today is Monday. It is January 13th, and this is a work session. I have to remind you that no decisions will be made today. This is a conversation meeting, and that's it. Other than that, Audra, welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
We've missed you.
Thank you.
I hope you continue doing better. First item on the agenda is this discussion of homelessness and, I'm sorry, I don't have it here. Homelessness and the use of city-owned parks. So who will present?
Mayor, if I could please begin, if I may.
You bet.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I want to begin by saying that I think today is reflected on the agenda. The broader issue is homeless or the unhoused and what to do with them, and to minimize negative, if you will, citizen homeless encounters. That's probably not a very delicate way of phrasing that, but I do want to say that what precipitated this work session, of course, was Dr. Rhonda Epper of the college coming here and recounting to council an episode that she had that was, a person who appeared to be homeless, who had an axe and who was looking for his cat. So that again is what precipitated this conversation. But I think the narrower issue is, I think, really negative encounters between citizens. And I know that homeless people are citizens also. I'm just, in trying to phrase this as best I can. But encounters between other citizens and homeless people, and what to do to minimize those, especially on the Riverwalk and the Boulevard addition. I think those are areas that are really what at least I hear the most about in terms of people being afraid to go out into those areas. They're afraid to use the Riverwalk. They're afraid to go on the Boulevard addition and the things that arise from that. Also, we as staff have provided you with a number of materials. We have given you the current ordinances that we have on, that touch on overnight camping. Those have been sent to you. We also, that was about a week ago, I sent those by way of email. You also have the case of Grants Pass versus Johnson, which is the Supreme Court case from last summer that has been mentioned a number of times. It says that municipality can adopt a camping ban ordinance, and that does not violate the constitutional protection against cruel and unusual punishment. We've also provided you with some material from the city of Alamosa. And I want to let you know that, and this is really the last thing I want to say really before I cue this up to all of you and you begin the conversation, but that is the St. Benedict encampment in Alamosa. There's been a lot written or a lot said that is pretty positive about that. However, upon further researching that location and what's going on there, we found a lot of negative materials regarding that. Mike found an article on the police chief in Alamosa being rather exasperated with that homeless camp, and a number of other things. Also, I sent you an email yesterday. Councilman Ogletree gave us some materials, and I sent those on to you. So when we had this conversation last year, I think it was about June, Council was talking about as a possible solution, finding property to have a possible location like the St. Benedict camp, and you were going to be looking into that, or we were talking about that, but I think you realized how difficult that is. The problems associated with location, financial questions in buying the property, and also the resources that are required for maintaining a property such as that. So I want to also say that last year when we talked about this, loitering was part of the discussion. And I don't believe, unless you guys want to mention that or talk about that, you certainly can, but we really haven't looked into the whole subject of loitering and anything regarding that. But I do want to say, as you're thinking about this, one of your questions is whether or not the existing ordinances that we have in place now are sufficient and are adequate for enforcement purposes, or if an additional camping ban or other ordinance needs to be considered by you in order to accomplish your goals. But that's what I have, and I give it back to you, Mayor.
Alrighty, sir. So what would be the procedure we're going to follow is, I know Detective Sergeant Lay is going to speak. Are we going to allow people that are just here in the audience to speak as well?
I think that is what is being contemplated, is my understanding. I do recommend that. I think, obviously we have a lot of people here today, and I think that is appropriate, and allow people to speak yea or nay on this issue.
All right.
Yes. So, and I'm sorry, Mayor, but Detective Lay and anyone else that might be, with her, I don't know if Interim Police Chief Tohanovich is willing to speak on this, yes, those people and then anyone from the audience who will speak.
So if you didn't hear back in the audience, the procedure we're going to follow is to have staff report on what their findings are, what they want to speak about regarding homelessness. And then after staff is finished, then we'll go into public comment. Does that sound good? Shall we limit 5 minutes like we do?
I think that's a good idea.
5-minute limit on public speakers. You will have a minute to warning when you're close to your end of the 5 minutes. And I hope that you respect the time limitations, because it seems like the possibility of a lot of speakers is here. Alrighty, Detective Sergeant Lee, you're up.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. I don't have anything as prepared as I typically do for you all, because I've given the presentation numerous times too, and I don't feel that rehashing the same presentation over and over is doing it any justice. I was here in March of 2023, and we're now in January of 2025. So I guess what I will say at this point is I literally had a discussion with Sergeant Squires with Alamosa PD. He is their new community service sergeant for Alamosa PD. He has taken over their encampment site. And I spoke with him about 30 minutes ago when Pastor Clay was in my office and we were preparing to come over here. They have instated some new rules, and I should have made copies for you all. Over at the encampment site, PD has kind of been more involved with what's happening at the encampment. They're only allowing people to stay at this particular site for 6 months, and they have to be engaged with services, or else they can't stay there anymore. They have to sign these new agreements. They have at Alamosa PD, they've done some restructuring. They have a dedicated officer 2, they're homeless. They called it their homelessness liaison, officer liaison. The encampment started out with 96 people when Sergeant Squires had it. Right now, there's 23 people as of today that are engaged in services. They're living in the encampment. So they've made some adjustments. I know that you're talking about some potential negative media out this, but hearing from him today, 30 minutes ago, that's where they stand. And their council has also provided vouchers and other resources to help enforce these rules. And I can certainly email this to you instead of make a copy of it. But I really think it would be important to hear from some of the other people who are on the, aside from interim chief, that are on the Coalition for the Unhoused, like the new systems coordinator and some of the others.
Okay, just make yourself available. If
I'll be
anybody has questions, we're gonna put you on the hot spot.
I have a
Yes.
question that I would like some input on from the police department before we get started. So, Mr. Downs has sent us what ordinances we have, and they include trespassing upon public or privately owned property, and basically, the downside on that is that you get a fine of $300, and then there's a prohibition on staying in public park or public property between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., but it doesn't have any specific what's going to happen if you're found there. How are those ordinances working in Trinidad? Are they enforceable? Are they not?
But where are we gonna do? Like, if they have nowhere to go, they have nowhere to go. What we've been doing and what we've done for years is if you have somebody that is in a public park and you tell them to go, they're just going down the road 20 feet or 50 feet. They have nowhere to be.
So, so does that mean the police don't ask them to move, or does it just mean that they just move and that's the only remedy?
Not necessarily. So the police, if somebody's calling in for service, a call for service saying that there's an issue here, the police are responding to every single call for service. And if they need to have that person move, they can tell them to move, but it's not fixing the problem, you know? So where the police department is enforcing things as the ordinances stand now, but I mean, we have nowhere for them to be.
How often do we fine people
What do you mean?
for trespassing, a $300 fine that's in our ordinances? Do we do that?
We do. I don't have those particular numbers. I don't know if the interim chief could speak more to that or not, but I know that's something that officers utilize when necessary.
Okay. I just wondered if we use it at all. That was kind of more my thought. If these ordinances are effective to do anything, I think we should know that. If they're not, then we also should know that.
Right.
Mr. Downs, do you have any kind of information because you're Muni Court?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we get people that appear for violation of these ordinances that Councilman Ogletree's talking about?
Well, we don't get many people cited into municipal court for this kind of thing.
Okay.
Right, like trespassing. Like if somebody is, staying in, Central Park, or they're camping in Central Park and they're overnight. We don't, and that's not a place where that frequently happens. We don't get a lot of those kinds of tickets. And I will tell you, we do get a lot of homeless people who are cited into Muni Court, not a lot, but several. And it's very hard to prosecute them. We have a lot of no-shows. If they do show, they see the case through to its conclusion, they usually have their fines converted to useful public service. And, I don't know what the success rate of that is, like how many of them do their useful public service hours. But we don't get many cases like this cited in a Muni Court.
Alrighty.
Sorry, that was a long explanation.
Does anybody on council have any questions for Detective Sanjay? Mr. Williamson? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have, because seeing these two ordinances that we have, these are just the municipal ones, but just a curiosity. So there's differences, right? So there's criminal trespass, there's gonna be different things like that. That doesn't come to us, right?
I don't know what you're specifically looking at. I don't know that what was given to
No,
you all as
I'm just
council,
curious. So this is a curiosity. So, in light of what has happened, that has come up, and it's happened a few times with Dr. Epper and, other citizens that have been harassed or accosted. Harassment's not in one of our ordinances. Criminal mischief, those kind of things, those don't come to our court. Am I right? Or
So there can be a time for them to come to municipal court, or if it's at the officer's discretion, maybe they're going to county court.
Right.
It's up to the officer and what's happening on scene. Every situation is so unique and nuanced that sometimes the situation doesn't necessarily call for a citation. Sometimes it calls for a little mediation or something else to happen. The answer isn't always citing somebody.
Right, so
but the possibility could be in county court, could be in municipal court. There's a variety of possibilities.
So what I'm kind of getting at, we are battling it on both fronts, is what I'm saying. So what I was just trying to get at is, my main question, are we enforcing all of those? Like, are we kind of just letting go, or are we using a little heavier hand, saying that this is enough, it's time to cite you? Are we kind of using that discretion with our officers? Are they kind of using that?
So I'm probably not the person to ask on that. I mean, I can tell you from my experience what I do, but I'm not every single officer here in the police department.
Yeah.
And Councilman, it depends like a lot of like what you mean are reinforcing that. Like loitering, no, even camping, and I will tell you that it's very hard, to prosecute homeless people for kind of what amounts to being homeless, right? So they are camping, or they are, if they're trespassing on public land, it's kind of like, well, okay, it's public land, right? I mean, so anyway, I want to answer your question as best I can, and I don't think there's a lot of that going on. I will tell you also, like if I was a police officer and I was investigating multiple felonies, and I know that Detective Lay understands where I'm coming from, or just a lot of cases are, going to court, going to, very serious prosecutions. It's hard to have time to enforce laws, ordinances against homeless people. Not a cop-out, it's just, it's a matter of resources for the PD.
Thank you.
Councilman Williamson, do you have any questions for Detective Sergeant Knight?
No, I have no questions specifically for Sergeant Knight. Thank you.
I have a question. So we've been talking about finding some property for our campsite. Have you gotten any kind of bites on any property that we could use?
So I was at the development team meeting probably 5 or 6 times, and it seemed that it's a very contentious topic, right? There was never a resolution to a location within that meeting space, and I stopped going after 5 or 6 meetings.
Okay.
So do we have ideas? Sure, but any time that an idea was presented, there was always another position why that space wouldn't suffice.
Okay.
Do I think there's still a possibility for that? Yes.
Do you have a list? Do you have possible contenders?
Actually, Mayor, if I can interject, I came in back to this position
Right.
when they were looking for
Okay.
areas, and the list was there, the Boulevard Edition, which is, we have a little bit of property, we may have to purchase some that is west of the Boulevard Edition parks and trails. So does that make people feel safe on the Boulevard Edition? I don't know. Southside Park, just above the, or south of the fields, the city owns property on that hillside up there, and we have the property that we own for the dam area. It's not that you can park, camp in that area, but that was considered. We have the Isaac Walton property that was considered. And then we have property just past the fairgrounds going north that the city owns. Each one of these, like Detective Sergeant Lay says, they have issues. They don't have facilities, they're outside our jurisdiction. It's just, I don't know how you find a spot. Like Alamosa's, is my understanding, it's sort of out toward the airport where there's not a lot of homes. Is that correct?
It is correct. I went out and myself and Interim Chief Tahanovich visited that property about 2 years ago or so. And because the city owns it, they're able to enforce the regulations on the property, saying that if you're not getting services or whatever within 6 months, then you got to skedaddle. So there's pluses to the city owning the piece of property. It would have to come from that side.
It's important to see what updates we have on that, because we were talking about it in prior meeting. All righty, ma'am, thank you.
Absolutely.
Interim Chief Tahanovich, would you like to come forward and speak, please?
Sure, I guess there were some questions about some enforcement and things of that sort, so Council and Mayor, thanks for having me. Whoever wants to ask, I heard some of it.
So Mr. Downs provided for us 2 ordinances as, here's what we have to address instances where unhoused people are interacting negatively with people who are residents. And one of them is section 1617, trespassing upon publicly or privately owned property, and that has a $300 fine. And the other one is section 13.2, public parks, property, and trails, hours closed, which provides that you can't be in those areas between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. And so my question to Detective Sergeant Lay and to you is, are these effective tools at all for dealing with that situation? And if not, are there any that you suggest that we might have?
So they could be effective tools, and as Mr. Downs stated, I think I heard him say that criminalizing the homelessness problem is not the answer, and they don't have the resources to pay that fine. I know a lot of these don't. This is like one of the onlys that says, you know, you will pay this fine. I think you have to read down at the bottom somewhere where it says a violation of this section comes with X, Y, or Z. Some of them, most of them are fines unless the municipal court judge imposes some type of a sentence or services, community services and stuff like that. Are they following up with their cases on the ones that we do? They don't. They don't show up to court. I know we had a problem with the Amtrak enclosure not too long ago, and the officers finally said, all right, we're going to start citing people who are over here because they're not listening to us. You know, the verbal warnings and the, hey, you can't be here just weren't being effective. Getting a ticket to municipal court, I don't know what the outcome has been. I mean, it's the way it's written. I mean, it says, you know, if you're on somebody else's property and you're asked to leave and you don't leave, you get a citation into municipal court. Is that always the best answer? As Detective Sergeant Lay said, I believe is sometimes you do some educating and some talking to people about, hey, listen, you can't do this. How far do you let that go? I have, you know, 20 patrol officers that have different discretionary thoughts, and you know, and I'm not out there on a regular basis interacting with these people. They're, you know, some of the stories that they're giving, you know, might be just, hey, I stopped in here to get out of the weather for a little bit, I'm moving on. Doesn't necessarily mean that we are taking enforcement action by a citation with every single person that we deal with. It's just like a speeding ticket. You know, a lot of times it's the officer interacting with somebody and saying, hey, look, you were driving a little too fast. Let's talk about it. I'm going to get you on your way with a warning today. More violations come up with that same person. The officer's probably going to say, okay, I stopped you last week for the same thing. I'm going to give you a ticket this time. Or it's so egregious that it's like, I can't turn my eye from this, I have to do something about it. So, the trespassing is what it is. The parks, public parks, property and trails, hours closed. We find that somewhat difficult to enforce. That would take somebody going down there and checking at 10 o'clock to see if that person's there, and then checking throughout the night that they stayed there all night, and then trying to prove that they were there, because of prosecution reasons, you have to prove that they were there, you know, between 10 and 5 a.m. What I've asked on some of them is to do some follow-up a little bit, and we're busy. The guys don't have the time to go down there and keep checking on the camps and the tents and stuff. What we were doing in the past is kind of reasoning with some of the unhoused people who are making a camp, that if they kept it clean and they kept it, you know, not unsightly, and that you kind of weren't in the public eye, we were just telling, you know, checking in and making sure that you were keeping it, you know, clean. But I don't know how many of you have been down there. I've seen some of them, they're not clean. There's messes, there's trash. They look abandoned on some of them. So the ordinance here that for trespassing in the public properties and trails, I think could be maybe changed to some. I've seen an ordinance that Detective Sergeant Lay had acquired and provided to the city that's a no camping ban on public property, which in my opinion I think would help us a little bit more. So.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, it does.
Linda, do you have any questions? No? Frank?
Well, I know how tough it is with doing that. The public land deal that might be an issue to decide which is public land. That, I don't
It's
know.
also come up recently, yes.
I mean, you'd almost have to get a map and draw everything up and
Right.
go through that, because there are areas, you know, like we've talked about, even doing a river walk and that. We don't own all that land, there are other
Right.
lands, so it's kind of tough to decide which is
Right.
done. It's underneath that high value, that's really not public, that's state property, right?
Right.
So that's an issue there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a tough situation, just good luck. And I know you guys do the best you can. There's,
Nick, do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I agree like with this one, what you were saying, Chief, that between 10 and 5 a.m. isn't the problem. 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. isn't the problem, it's the daytime hours. And I think that's kind of what they're getting at. What has been the issue that people are saying, you know, we can't use the park because there's so many people in there. I do think the move along thing does work really well. You know, it's kind of saying, you know, okay, till it becomes a learned thing that, okay, we're not supposed to be here.
Right.
You know, we just need to, like I said, having another area where they move off to, but in our public parks, I really think that's where we need to kind of, I know it's hard to have extra patrol because we're not there yet. And I emphasize yet, hopefully in the future, we're gonna do better on trying to get more coverage for you guys. But I really honestly think that, yeah, sorry, I'm just mulling like a million different things over in my head all at once.
I
I
hear you.
Yeah, well, thank you for answering my question about the enforcement, because that's the question that I was getting from the public was, you know, are they even enforcing it? Are we even having criminal trespass? Are we getting all this? And I'm like, and in my response was yes, because I know you guys do a lot, because we watch, what is it, Crime Watch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we see it it's on there. It's public knowledge. It's out there. You know, you guys are doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I agree, enforcement's gonna be hard, because if they don't show up, they don't show up. We can't do anything. You know, we
Right.
can't go out there and go find them. You know, I really could see Mr. Downs down there on the river bottom recruiting people. They're like, hey, you're late. You know, but you know, that's not feasible. You know, so I think if we look into something a little bit more stringent, like Detective Lay had said, you know, that encompasses the daytime hours when the public wants to be using these places.
Right.
You know, if there is a nuisance, you know, we can kind of move it so they feel a little safer, a little more contained.
And I mean, even if we talked about the loitering, I know that got brought up a little bit ago too, is that the loitering is, you have to be hindering or impeding or You know, just to be standing there, it's not technically loitering unless you're impeding or hindering, you know, the access to an area, a sidewalk, a street, or a business. That had come up this summer when the commercial street business said, well, they just stand around on the sidewalks all day. I can't do nothing about that unless they're blocking someone from coming into your business. And we would go down there and tell them, hey, you know, I've been driving past you all day. I've seen you down here. You're just kind of hanging out. What's up? Well, I'll go somewhere else, and they'll leave. You know, but enforcing, that's more of like a, can you please kind of go hang out somewhere else for a little while? You've been standing on the same curb for about an hour or two or whatever. Some people find that creepy. Not everybody finds it creepy, but some people do. You know, so the loitering kind of falls into the same with this and going into the parks. You know, if you camp out at a picnic table all afternoon and you take a nap on it and you know, I mean, they're not really, there's just not a whole lot I could do about that.
I mean, I think, you know, what I've been told, they never complain about just them being there. It's the complaints that I'm hearing and that I'm observing and I'm saying, it's when they approach.
Yeah.
You know, learning, you know, it's like, and it's not our place to teach them, you know, that part of it. But, you know, when they come and approach, they panhandle, they ask, or, you know, or they come at you aggressively. That's it.
Disturbances, and, you know, we've had some instances down there where some violence has happened, and, you know, we try to deal with it as we can, but without somebody stationed right there to watch it 24/7, it's kind of hard to predict when unlawfulness is going to take place. It really is, you know, and I know I've said this before, you know, I'd love to have a team of officers that patrol down there. It would just be amazing to our department to be able to have that. Just, we don't have that luxury right now, so. We're dealing with a lot of stuff in the city and trying to keep us as safe as we can be on all fronts.
Yeah. So if what we need to look at is how we can also support you as well. You know, even if it's non-law enforcement as a way, I would think might be a possibility of an idea, and I don't know if it's possible, of having a Parks and Rec employee that kind of hangs out around there all day throwing trash. If we had the person, you know, but just I think presence of not only an officer but somebody that's there, I think also helps to kind of deter.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Our training starts with officer presence. You know, when you first go through, is that, you know, if there's not a police officer around, crime's likely to be afoot. So.
I would say that our Parks and Recs employees are not trained for that type of interaction.
No, but
I would hope that, you mentioned littering, they are citizens too. Throw it in the trash can. The trash cans are there. Don't just throw it on the ground.
Yeah, and what I mean, I don't mean by like having them go out and arrest and
No.
having someone standing out there and be like, oh, hey, there's something going on, you know, to be able to call it in, you know, and just that kind of a presence as well, because our parks are empty. I've been down at Cape Carson Park and there is not a body to be found, you know, even on a nice day, you know, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm gonna head home. So that's all I have. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right, not a problem. Mr. Thurman, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a little something. I was talking to Mr. Valentine today, and I was
Speak up, I don't think.
I'm sorry, I was talking to Mr. Valentine, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is this thing on?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, I was just saying that homelessness is the thing in city council that kind of ties my stomach up in knots. And the way I'm looking at it now is, we're going around and around.
Yeah.
Big time. So I'm thinking we should focus on taking care of the where they're going to go aspect before we start trying to enforce them and move them along, because we're not moving them anywhere. We just like Mrs. Lay said, they're just moving down 20 feet, 30 feet.
Right.
So we need to get them situated to where here's something for you to lay on or camp out in. And instead of having a camping ban, we should have a camping fee. You want to camp in the city of Trinidad or in this area, it's going to cost you X, Y, Z. Come up with the money. It could be $10 just to show good faith, just to say I'm participating in what the city has going on. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be nothing outrageous. It could be like, I'm with you guys. I'm with trying to make this thing go forward. Because right now, it's nobody in here who's homeless, so nobody's speaking for the homeless. It looks like a us versus,
We do have a couple.
we do have some homeless
Yeah.
guys?
They'll speak after.
Okay, word up. I appreciate you coming through, man.
I'm waiting patiently.
Yes, sir.
And I think you're probably going to be able to hear from some other members of the coalition.
For sure, that's what I'm talking about.
And help that we're getting on this to kind of.
But I'm thinking we shouldn't try to solve the problem
Right.
in one big thing. We should,
Oh, it's way bigger than
yeah,
just that.
let's get you somewhere to go and establish some property and land to get this party started instead of trying to corral ants back into an ant bed. That's not gonna happen. So we need to be more diligent about what we're really trying to do versus, are we trying to solve a homeless problem or are we trying to solve a transit problem? You know what I mean? So that's what I want to put on the table.
Mr. Williamson went dark on me, so if he wants to speak.
No, I'm here. I've just been,
Okay, do you have any questions of interim chief?
not for interim Chief Tanovich. Thank you, Mr. Tanovich, Chief Tanovich. Appreciate it.
This is a problem or a subject that's come up before council almost every year that I've been here, and this is my 8th year. So I don't know what the solution is per se. I think number one is nobody wants to criminalize the homeless. If I ever thought that a homeless person had $300 to sign a fine, they obviously wouldn't be homeless. I think the issue is, how are we going to coexist between citizens and citizens that are homeless? And I see for myself, there's some areas we can better ourselves in, such as Chimino Park. You know, the city's spending a ton of money trying to get that refurbished and enlarged, but it is not, it's almost impossible to maintain that property. It's because people do not respect that property. And so I'm not lecturing you. I'm just saying this is my perspective.
Right. I mean, we can't even keep the bathrooms open because they've destroyed them. So
Exactly. I noticed.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think it's education. It's education on the public part to understand what homelessness actually is. And I think the homeless population has to understand that they have to respect public and private property. You know, you and I and Detective Sergeant Lay went to those businesses that were affected, that were brought up to us a couple of months ago. And that area seems to be a target for graffiti, for litter. We can't even really, for the public use of Chimino Park is almost non-existent now. When you go to the park, especially during the summer, the people that are there to eat lunch or dinner or whatever are limited to those little small seating areas. And I'm just saying it not to you directly, Chief, but just so people will understand what my perspective is, and I think what council's perspective is. We've got to find a way how each group can respect each other and not monopolize public spaces for sure, and not to destroy private businesses. Some of the information we got on that day that we were talking, I mean, these businesses are suffering because they're adjacent to Chimino Park.
Right.
That graffiti on the Mason building is horrendous. It is really bad. So I think maybe, I don't know if council agrees with me, but I think that's the direction we need to go. Anybody have any comments, further comments, questions? Okay, we're good? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Sure, please. Thanks, please.
Anybody else from city? The city staff? Pastor Clay, you're sitting there pretty quiet. You're not a city official, but you're on the ground, so
Well, thank you. You
come on
know,
up.
homelessness is a multifaceted problem, and I wish I could tell you that I'm an expert on it, because I'm not. But I have been doing this for 8 years. I've studied a lot, I've read a lot, I've visited a lot of places, and I am, before I go any further, I want to tell you I'm honored to sit as co-chair with Detective Lay and our Homeless Coalition. I do believe that we are headed in the right direction and finding the solution, and there are solutions for this. None of it's going to be easy. It won't be cheap, but it will be cheaper than what we've done in the past. Detective Lay, when she first did her presentation back in May of, was that 23, wasn't it? Mentioned a gentleman named $1 Million Murray in Las Vegas, Nevada. They followed him around for 10 years, or tracked his record for 10 years. He was a homeless veteran. Over that 10-year period, it cost the city of Las Vegas $1 million to deal with Murray. That $1 million in fines, medical, all of the police calls that officers that had to respond to him and his needs in particular, cost the city a lot of money. And that money, had it been directed in a different direction, a more positive direction, rather than criminalizing homelessness, used to put Murray through a process of rehabilitation, rehousing, that sort of thing, that money would have been much more effectively spent, and I believe a lot could have been done a lot cheaper. We have been doing this for 8 years. The issues that the city faces and the other citizens of our city face are real. I understand that. Most of our folks, and I call them my people, come from some very deep-seated problems, familial problems or the lack thereof. The number one cause of homelessness in America today is the destruction of the family. There is no safety net when we fall on hard times. And if you want to, I wish I had prepared something for you. I'm just speaking off the cuff.
You're doing great, just continue.
Before I came to Trinidad, Colorado, and by the way, I didn't come here to do this. I came here because I was dying. They gave me 5 years to live. That was 8 years ago. And I used cannabis oil to treat it. When I knew I was cured, I looked around and we saw the homeless. And it was just amazing. My eyes, I'd seen them before in Houston, Texas, and Dallas, Texas, and Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Texas. And I've always been an individual who stood up for the underdog, but coming here and seeing it in Trinidad was a real eye-opener for me. And the things that were going on, the issues surrounding homelessness, and I looked at my wife and I said, do you want to see what we can do to fix this? We owe it to these people to fix this. Because they are human after all. Most of my people suffer mentally from various ailments. As a matter of fact, studies have been shown that once you've been on the street for about 6 months, your mental faculties begin to take a hit. Once you've been homeless for a couple of years, it becomes harder and harder with each passing year to get you out of that, so that by the time you've been homeless for 10 years, you've got mental issues that will never be resolved.
1 minute, sir. I'm sorry.
Yes, brother.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
1 minute.
Oh, okay, 1 minute. So anyway, I believe there are solutions. But I will tell you this, the first thing we need is a place to camp. And we have looked at several different places, and as Jennifer and I were talking about earlier, every place we have mentioned, there's been some opposition to it. At some point or another, we're gonna have to bite the bullet and say, we're gonna designate this place so that we can move forward. There are solutions. I believe we have a great coalition of people that can bring those solutions to us. But we're gonna have to make a decision. Are we or are we not? Always understanding there, but for the grace of God, go out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pastor Clay, I need to ask you a question.
Oh,
Come on back.
I don't, do you have a quarter? Yes, ma'am.
Maybe I'll do an IOU here. So I know what you do down at Chimino Park, and I know you have a great relationship. Do you ever do any like on-site education? It's like guys don't litter. I
Yes,
mean,
ma'am.
do you try and reinforce that?
We do, and you know, I love what's happened the last couple of years. We've got a very good working relationship with the police department and with the fire department. Chief Baccarat calls me when they have people down on the river so that I can go and kind of intercessor before them. And I try to tell our people, you've been given an opportunity, and I know the Boulevard is a favored place for a lot of the community. But right now, the Boulevard is where we've told them, if you will go, set up your camp in the trees, out of sight, out of mind, and keep that thing clean, they will leave you alone. But again, you're dealing with mental. 99% of my people have got issues. And I don't say that in a derogatory sense. It's just a reality. Do we educate them? Yes, sister. And I wish I had a magic wand that they'd all obey. But it's like herding cats on the best of days. And given the situation, the struggles that they have day to day, they don't care. So many of them just don't care. And it's heartbreaking. And so when they're spun up, they're high or they're drunk, and we feed them because we're trying to keep them alive, and I see them throw that trash down, oh, it just makes my wife so mad. And she's called down a couple of them. And they get angry right back at her, but it's like, you'd rather go bear hunting with a stick than tangle with her, but ask me how I know. But yes, ma'am, to answer your question, we're trying.
All right.
We are. And sometimes it takes and sometimes it doesn't. There are, as there is in any group of people, a faction that they're just going to do what they want to do.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
for everything.
Well, I'm doing my best, sister.
I know you are. Thank you.
Anybody else?
No? So we don't have a sign-up list, so if you want to speak, raise your hand. And just, I know some names, I know not. This gentleman that was in front here, did you want to speak, sir?
I'm gonna let them go first.
Okay.
That way I can assess.
Okay, I'm gonna do it not in as fast as you raised your hand in speed, just by where you're located. Mr. Howlett, would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Staff, council, mayor. Last night was my 14th time getting the call to be an overnight host. I've had the opportunity to work with Clay Mason for about 6 years now. And a shout out goes to the Zion Church, because about 3 years ago they stepped forward and said, we got a place for you. And those nights we get about 25, 30 people. It's really effective. And it really worked well. And I got the chance to know people. Many of them graduated from Trinidad High School. So when people actually think that those are those people, they're all people. And there's bigger numbers because many of them are couch surfing. Uncle Joe will let them stay there right now, but then you gotta get out of here. And I'll also say that a lot of the folks on the river are taking advantage of the population that's unhoused to do illicit things. So these are some people that are housed down there. and there's a really good percentage of them. So when you see a lot of folks doing bad activities on the river, some of these folks are going home, they're getting in their car, they're driving home, and they're warm that night. So not all the activity down there is just the unhoused. Most of the time, they're more afraid of you, except when it gets a little crazy. So that's that, you know, what we found, though, is it got less and less people, because trust is a big issue. It's a big challenge in that group. Okay, it's really damaged people. They're broken. I started doing this work because I'm a veteran, and I found that about 40% of the folks that are out on the streets are honorably discharged veterans. We bring them back broken, and we don't do anything for them, except say, thank you for your service if you find out they were in the military. We need to do more. And so, but we went from 30, 25 to 10, 15, then Zion needed to move forward and let somebody else step forward, and then it was Knights of Columbus and the Keep Trinidad Safe folks, and we'd get 20, 25 folks there, and then that had to close down, and we just got picked up by the Church of Christ, and last week we had 8 people show up, and 5 left, and only 3 stayed the night. I was there last night to full duty, and see some folks that I hadn't seen in a while, and we had none. We shut it down at a little after 10 o'clock, we had none. And the main reason is the solution for this is a place for them to go, not just at night when it gets cold, but to go during the day. And what we need to do from the business perspective, and my chamber president hat, we need to reclaim our parks. We need to reclaim the river. And how you do that, and the success models in other areas, have been to give somebody a safe camp that has rules and does human triage and allows people to come in and get fixed. And if not fixed, get a pathway to somebody that can help them. In Trinidad, we will not have the funds to help everybody. It's just a reality. Because some of these people are really, really broken and really, really damaged. But can we take some of the folks that they're homeless right now because their truck broke down, they've been taken advantage of? Yeah, I've met those folks. Can we do some other things to maybe educate some people? Yeah, because I met those folks. There's a group of folks that actually we can help. I've slept with them. I've ate with them. And they're good people, and when I see them in town, I say hello to them. I don't shun them because they're good people. They're just broken. And so a safe camp someplace where there's rules. In order to come in, you need treatment. In order to come in, we need to do some human triage. What bucket do you fall into? Do you have a mental illness? Is it a drug problem? Is it documentation? Is it you can't get a job? Do you need rent assistance? All of those things are actually opportunities to help that we need to throw out there. It's not, there's not one tool, but all those things. But a safe camp, the only folks that have been successful in this area are folks that can actually reclaim their parks, and we reclaim our river, and we get somebody into a place where they have to be in a civil society and follow the rules in order to get the help and treatment they need. And that's not being hard, that's being work. Yeah, that's actually doing the work, right? And if you don't do that, then you know what there are repercussions. There are consequences. If you don't come into a safe camp and follow the rules and do what you need to do and stick to a treatment program or stick to a work program or stick to something. So I'm not saying we should just Pollyanna, rose-colored glasses, everybody. No. But we need a safe camp. We need a place because they need to be there during the day sometimes. They need to actually reconnect to society. We need to do more work than just warming them up to the middle of the night and giving them a dinner and a breakfast. And we can do that. That opportunity is there. And it costs less money to do that than it costs to do what we're doing right now in emergency service, hospital, policing, and just our businesses losing money, our city losing reputation, and not being able to have kids and grandmas go into the parks and down on the river. The safe camp is the answer, and Dr. Repper said that the other day too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chelsea, is that you back there?
Yes.
I didn't, you don't look the same in person as you do on Zoom.
Hopefully I look better.
You look marvelous.
Thank you. Well, hello. How are we doing today?
Good, Chelsea. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to speak with you guys in person. I adore the points that have been brought up so far, but I do have a couple keep in mind pleases. A few of them I do want to repeat from those who have gone before me, as far as your solution starts with a place for them to go. Because as they've mentioned, you're asking them to move down a little bit, but you had said specifically that they're not supposed to be there. But where are they supposed to go is my question. If you don't have a place where these individuals are supposed to go, you're just continuing the cycle that you're already in and that you've already been in. And so a couple of the things that I just want to mention today, as far as having a location in this conversation around the codes and what to do around the ordinances, is one, about having that location. I do believe, in my expertise, that having an encampment is the most low barrier place that you could have for an individual to go. It allows for pets to be there. It allows for me as a resource to be able to have a location that I can go meet with these individuals in. And then it also gives them a place to rest. So that is going to be your most low barrier option. That, or we can just skip straight to a shelter, but please allow dogs and any kind of mental substance abuse, those kinds of things. You get into higher barrier situations once that comes. And like I mentioned at the city council meeting, I still have to dive into some of those specifics about what I believe would be best, and I will be happily bring those to you guys. Some of the things that I've been asked multiple times include an estimate on how many individuals we have, because right now we are currently speaking as a generalization, and from my estimates, we are looking at a minimum of 50 to 100 individuals.
In Trinidad.
In Trinidad specifically. One of the issues about how you guys see so many people is other communities have BLM land, national forest land that these individuals are going to. You guys kind of sit in a little hole here, and all your trails cost money to get to for the most part. I tried to find a trail for my dog the other day, and I was like, they're all at the state park. Where are the actual other trails other than the Wormhole Trail? So in other communities, individuals have BLM, national forest land, other places to go. So it is so prominently seen here because they don't have those places to go, and then you're just moving them along. There's no encampment. There's no other places. I know I'm on a time schedule. Two things I wanted to make important as far as making a decision on a camping ban or anything that goes along with it. One is that the county classification of Los Animas County is a frontier county. That means that there are 6 people or fewer for every square mile within the county. I will pass these around as a map of other counties, and if you're comparing it even to Alamosa, that is considered a rural county. So in your conversations, please take that into account when we're comparing them to different locations. And then my second point, as far as those things go, as far as enforcement, understand that the consequences play a factor in contributing or exiting out of the cycle of poverty. So I would encourage us to, if we are implementing consequences for a potential ban, first let's get a place for them to go, but then if there are consequences after that, let's make sure that they're equitable to the population in which we are serving here. A $300 fine is not going to get paid by somebody in this. However, maybe on the first time you get a couple hours or you get a warning, and then the second time you get a couple hours of community service. If you are that individual who is causing such a bad nuisance where you are coming after someone with an axe which prompted this, that is considered assault. So we need to take that a little bit further. If it is a substance abuse thing that is happening, maybe mandatory recovery or mandatory treatment of some sort, there are other alternatives other than a fine that contributes to the cycle of poverty. And then the other thing that I just wanted to point out is that point in time that we are doing to where I can get you more specific numbers. Here is a bit more information. Sorry.
In 1 minute, ma'am. Sorry.
Yes. I'm trying to talk fast.
I am sorry.
A bit more information on that is coming.
I don't think she needs to.
Okay.
Okay, she's actually a
I understand.
quasi-staff.
I understand.
Yeah, I didn't know, 'cause I don't think we work for
Okay,
the
all right,
city.
stopping the time.
Apologize, I mean, this is kind of
Just timing
informal.
everybody.
Take a breath, Chelsea.
Thank you. I'm a fast talker anyway, but trying to get through all these points. So that will help us allow to get the number of individuals that are actually experiencing homelessness. And then another point I just want to bring up is that in any given community, 40 to 60% of the individuals who are experiencing homelessness are from the community in which they are experiencing it. So these are people who went to your elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, who have participated in your community and have either, whatever the situation may be, I'm not going to assume, whatever the situation may be, have ended themselves into this spot. And as well as, you all sit on I-25, you do have a transient population. So you have both sides of those things without any place for these individuals to go, which is going to be the first step in getting this to be a solvable problem. I'm gonna brief if you guys have questions.
Erin, do you have a question?
What significance is it that we're frontier versus rural?
Yes, so there's actually another demographic that does fit in there. So technically there is urban, rural resort, and frontier. So in Frontier County specifically, that means that there's typically only one, maybe two different locations where an individual can go to receive resources. In this county, it's Trinidad. You're not going to go to Kim to try to get help for what they're experiencing right now. So in frontier counties, you are more likely to have a centralized location that will help with that coordinated entry system that I will be putting into place for these individuals. But the difference is also the amount of resources, the amount of people who are using those resources, and the location in which they are. So the difference between a rural and rural resort, Alamosa would be considered rural versus Chaffee County, which houses Salida and Buena Vista. They bring people, they attract people who are in their tourism fields, who maybe they want to go out, they want to work in the tourist, they want to work on the river, in the mountain, whatever it may be, and sometimes they're living out of their car. One thing, just to give you an alternative to Alamosa and to kind of bring this point, in Salida they have what's called a safe outdoor space. But to be able to participate, and what makes it not low barrier, is that you have to have a paycheck or a pay stub from working within the community, because they don't just want people who are coming and traveling to be utilizing what their community actually needs it to be for their workforce. So there are different levels to encampments that there are, but for a frontier county to be low barrier, one would not have to have that requirement.
Do you know, you have a lot of experience in this area, and I'm very, like you said the other night, I'm really thankful that you're working with us, and that's going to make a huge difference. What as I've been thinking about this, we have heard over and over that this is an enormous problem. It's a problem throughout the United States. Mm-hmm. Do you know if there's any sense that states and or the federal government has any offer of assistance? The way I look at it, it's like we have crises going on everywhere. We have a crisis on this in Trinidad. We have a crisis apparently in Salida and Alamosa and all over the place. And it strikes me as incredibly inefficient that every community who draws people to it now has this problem. Now you must put time and resources and set aside other things you want to do and sacrifice land to address this problem. And I'm just wondering if you're aware whether or not there is any kind of a statewide program that's designed to make any sort of effort to bring people to a central location and get assistance at that location for the things that they need to do. That strikes me, that would be efficient.
Right.
We don't have enough social workers. We don't have enough doctors, lawyers, Native American chief. We don't have them here. So I find I'm growing frustrated with that.
I understand that. And I just want to make it known, Colorado's had a homelessness issue since Colorado was founded. So it's a beautiful state to come to. It's temperate weather. It's nice to be in. There's tons of things to do outdoors. So Colorado has had this issue since its inception. What I think is changed over time, to your point, is how you mentioned that you must sacrifice land. In the past, we have been more communal. We have been shared. We've even been a barter system in the past. So I think we've come to this point as society in general where we've become so individualistic that we're now looking at it as a sacrifice versus how are we helping these individuals? Because yes, there are going to be some nuisances that it gets bad, but there are some other people, like I would assume most of these people in this room, are a paycheck away from the same situation. That is your community there. So I would encourage us to not look at it as a sacrifice, but also this community has been a resource desert, if we're being honest. So the things that you guys are experiencing now, thankfully, we don't have to recreate the wheel because there are other communities and services that have been provided. I will say, as a frontier county, you guys are leading right now, especially by having the new service providers that are coming in here. You guys are taking that step as a frontier county. However, as far as statewide initiatives, my goal is I'm working with Community Solutions under Built for Zero, that functional zero I was talking to you about. That has proven in different demographics, for example, Fremont County and their veterans, they have reached functional zero in some of their areas. We are just now starting that here. And so you guys, I've come to accept, are either going to be my best friend or my worst enemy. So I think that when we're talking about this, we're not recreating the wheel, but we're just now starting. And so yes, we're going to have some growing pains, we're going to have some back and forth, and there's going to be different factors. And the reason I bring up the frontier versus rural is not only for this conversation, but for all conversations that we have in the future when we want to compare what is happening here to other communities. How communities respond to it, yeah, it's all different. You guys are experiencing a different level of unhoused here versus, let's say, Craig or Cortez. You guys are experiencing a different level because the resources that are available here versus the resources that are available in an area like that. So it's figuring out what this community actually needs, and there is no one set solution to ending homelessness. All homelessness comes from some sort of trauma and a crisis of belonging. If we're trying to push people down the road, they do not feel like they belong here. And so we also talk about respect in these conversations with these individuals. Respect goes both ways. So we have to understand that these are community members that just so happen to be in a situation that is less privileged than ours, but that does not mean that it's a sacrifice for us to help them.
Okay. But so what you're saying is you aren't aware of any kind of a state or federal approach to this massive problem?
So we have Built for Zero. I will say that one of my goals is to get more vouchers down here. As you develop more resources, we're able to reach out. For youth specifically, we have the Colorado Rural Collaborative, who I've contracted with to help individuals 18 to 24. Youth homelessness goes up to 24. So there are outside resources, there are outside funding. We just need to tap into them. I do not believe that money is ever an issue. We just got to be looking in the right place to be able to find it.
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No, the biggest issue with your coming to us is we're landlocked.
Yeah.
I mean, we have no land, city land that's available for what you need. The county needs to step forward too,
Okay.
because they're just as involved in this as we are.
Yeah.
And, for us to build get a camp area, where?
Right.
And that's been a big issue with us. I mean, we talk about it and that, but we're not doing anything about it. But we also need to have the county some land that's adjacent to our city limits that maybe would be feasible for a camp.
I agree. That's why I brought up that point.
But we need to get that done with some of the county people too to work on this, because it's a big issue for the whole Los Animas County.
It is.
And we need to do that. But I mean, we're kind of stuck in the middle with us because we just don't have the land and the money and stuff right at the moment either. It's kind of tough. We had a tough time making our budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're not using that as an excuse, but it is tough for everybody. So we need to all work together. And like you say, if we can, Ms. Ogletree brought up the government stuff. I did talk to Ty Winters, our representative, about some issues about stuff that he was going to bring up at the legislature about camps and stuff. And I mean, I know it's kind of far out, but back in the 30s and 40s when we had all the employment and everything else, the government did put the PWA and a bunch of these camps together to build an infrastructure of the communities. And I mean, that's not too far out. We're sending money to Ukraine and all these other countries, and our country's suffering more than they are. And I think that's kind of important that our legislators need to be well aware of that to make things work for everybody, especially our country.
Absolutely.
Thank you for what you're doing, and like I say, if we can help you, we can, but it's a little tough when we don't have the land.
I think that's also, if we're speaking about the land specifically, and if we're going to talk to county, it would be something of, if it's outside of the city limits, maybe the city helps provide a shuttle to and from the resources that are in the town, to be able to grocery shop, to be able to go to doctor's appointments, those kinds of things. So I think that there's a way that we can collaborate together, because obviously you're right. You're landlocked all the way around. one of the problems here is there's not that BLM, there's not that Forest Service for people to be able to go to. So how are we going to make that work? And collaboration, I feel, is going to be part of that key to the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so, just more questions and observations, because like I said, there's a lot to it.
Yes.
You know, one, I agree with Mr. Councilman Shu. We don't have the resources right now. We're not in a position, which is, it's really hard, because I've written down 3 goals. Well, let me start off with that. It's probably a little bit better. So the 3 goals for myself that I would like to see eventually, you know, and this is where we hopefully can support you.
Okay.
So, you know, we have the ordinances, the encampment, and the warming shelters. How would you prioritize those?
Ordinances, warming shelter, what was the other one?
Encampment.
And encampment. Warming shelter first, because we have to keep people alive.
Okay.
That would be number 1 in my list. Number 2 would be encampment, and then number 3 would be the ordinances. The ordinances will become easier if you have those other 2 in place.
Okay. So, I know you're just, and it's so hard because you're just getting started, and I know you're diving
She's
head
been
first
here
into
a
it.
week. She should,
I know.
She should know this.
She should already have
That
it all
doesn't mean I'm not
down.
that familiar. Like, I have done outreach, I have done some things here.
So, and I did do a little bit looking. I know you already know this. There's, you know, money's probably available from DOLA, CDPHE, ERS, FEMA for emergency shelters, things like that. Since we are lacking in those areas, maybe there's a possibility. I hate to ask for more help from outside, but we do need to come together as a community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we can get the community to come in and other agencies to step up and say, hey, yeah, we found money. Is there something that you guys can do? Maybe we can figure something else out. Because I know we are stretched.
Yeah.
And first things first, we have to keep public safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what the main topic is today, is what we're supposed to be really working on, is public safety. And I think, you know, I just want to say an extra thank you to Chief to go through and say, yeah, we wanted to let people know, I wanted to let people know we are enforcing all of this stuff and we are trying to protect the peace.
Mm-hmm.
It may not look like it, but it is there and it is happening. There's just so much right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a weird area. It's winter. You're going to see everything.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, so this is where I was kind of looking at, was trying to figure out, you know, what should we be trying to work on, you know, to figure out with you guys, you know. But I do want to reach out a plea past you, to the rest of the community that is all here. What resources do we have? And what else can we do? And who can we get other people to also step up to and help us? Because we all have family out there. I don't think there's not one of us right now that doesn't have a family member out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we really need to just figure this out some way soon. Now we've got a polar freeze coming up, thanks to the Church of Christ for opening up, thanks to the other community centers, and I believe our community center has popped open here and there when it starts to freeze. So that's kind of why I wanted to get the priorities. If a warming shelter would be number 1, and maybe that's something we can look at, a building or something, you know, and then work on the rest.
Yeah. Can I add to that real quick?
Please do.
So I do want to make a clarification between a warming center and a winter shelter. So a warming center is what we are currently doing, where if it drops below a certain temperature, that's when it opens up. Your more effective measure will be a measure similar to like a Salida model, where they do a winter shelter from it doesn't really get cold in Salida until like December. So December till April, or after Thanksgiving till April, where that person is able to have consistent 8 to 8 shelter every single night. They know they can go there. I have worked in that shelter myself. I've seen people get housed from going to that shelter, being able to fill out paperwork with somebody other than themselves in their little community and ask questions and have that space to go. They do a meal train to make sure that those meals are taken care of every night by volunteers in the community. They have to clean up every day before they leave, and it's split between men and women's in 2 different buildings, in 2 different churches technically. So there is a difference between what we are currently doing with a warming center and a winter shelter. The winter shelter would be my priority over the warming center, winter shelter, encampment, and then ordinances, if I were to separate those 2 out in order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Neiman, do you have anything?
I just want to make the comment, I like the fact that you don't take no for an answer.
You're
You're gonna find a way to at least get this ball rolling.
Mhm.
I mean, it's rolling now just for the fact that you're here and bringing knowledge to the council dais. Appreciate everything that you're doing. Appreciate you working with our local government to get things going. It seems like all we need to do is find you some property.
Yeah, that would be the first good step.
May it be in town, out of town. I know everybody's saying we're landlocked, but all I see is land.
Right.
So you have to figure out how to acquire some of it, a little piece of it, for at least 50 to 100 people to get things started. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your commitment to the cause.
You're welcome. And I know Jen mentioned that she's gone and seen their encampment. I am close with Judy from La Puente Homes, and so she's invited me to come see their encampment and kind of finite the nuances in that for you guys and how that would best potentially work here. They've had some trial and error. Like I said, we don't have to recreate that wheel, but I do appreciate your openness to helping find this plot of land to be able to make this next best step. Thank you.
Aaron's comment. Do you have a question here?
I apologize, I'm really not well. Mayor, I just wanted to say, I obviously don't have a sense of how many more people are remaining to speak in the room, but I just wanted to hold my comments or questions maybe until the end. So I have no questions, but thank you for being here.
Last but not least, it's me. You mentioned community service. That's something that's never even entered my mind.
Really?
Yeah. Is there any kind of, what is your experience with community service for infractions? Or explain to me how you've seen that done in the past.
Yeah, so I would say it's similar to if an individual ends up on probation and they have useful community service, you have to go to a nonprofit, register with them and do certain hours. We could even go as far as to make it specific where it's 10 hours of cleaning up the parks, or it's, I don't know what those needs would necessarily be around here yet, but trying to meet the need with a problem that also needs to be solved. So if the issue is the parks are also unkempt because of this, if there is a place where an individual could be going, they choose not to go there, and they choose to destroy the park, the proper punishment would be, you have to now clean this park and it is mandated. And so kind of just looking into those options, I will refer to your legal for those kinds of things, for what those specific options or what would be viable. But I can also work on that on my side of different ideas and things like that goes out. But I would say either match it to what is happening there currently. If it's a graffiti thing, make it to where they're cleaning up graffiti, something like that. It also instills a sense of accountability and responsibility within the individual. And so I would say, I will defer to you for those kinds of things, but I just encourage, let's not make it a hefty fine. Let's not make it jail time. Let's not make it into these things that just continues that cycle.
The problem with that, if I could please interrupt, is that you need somebody to supervise what they're doing, right? We don't have anyone in the parks supervising people who would like be cleaning up the parks. It's a great idea, but otherwise, they, have them go to organized, places where people can watch them and make sure they're working. But it's a great idea.
Just an observation. We're here because of a reaction to what Dr. Epper told us last week. And I just want to caution everybody that we can't derail the train now. We got the train on the tracks. Let the train continue on. Let's not make any hasty decisions. I mean, it's taken us, 3 years to get here, to have a coordinator of the unhoused. We need to just keep on going in that direction. I feel bad that happened to Dr. Epper. I know of the young man that she had the encounter with, and I've seen him around town many times, never had any issues with him. So just keep that in mind, please, when we're making decisions. Let's not do any knee-jerk reaction to this. number one. Number two, I think it would really be beneficial if all of us as council could go to Alamosa with you, Chelsea.
Oh goodness, field trip.
Field trip. No, I'm serious. I mean, we're seeing two sides of St. Benedict's. And I think we as council, people that are making these decisions, go look and talk to people that are using the facility, they're operating the facility, citizens. That's the only way we're gonna decide what we can do. I mean, it's part of the plan, you know? So does council have any objection? I'd like,
You let me know when.
okay.
I mean, you guys are the busy ones, so.
Anybody else would like to go to Alamosa? Anybody? Well,
How about that? I volunteer for that.
you weren't invited.
I didn't need to be invited.
Okay,
May I comment on something there, Mayor, if you don't mind?
sure.
With all due respect, I respectfully disagree with the comment that we're here because of Rhonda Effort. While I have an immense amount of respect for Dr. Effort on many levels, and she's done a lot of important work for the town. Her opinion and her experience, and I believe, you know, I don't think that she would disagree with me saying it, but her experience doesn't carry any more weight than any of our citizens. And I know that's not what you said, but I just want to point out the fact that we're not here because of Dr. Effort per se. We're here because of mounting evidence of continued and increasing interactions, negative interaction with Commonwealth. And I understand what you're saying and agree with you, let's don't derail the process. But the fact of the matter is, you know, urinating and defecating on other people's property is illegal. Public sex, drinking alcohol, drug use is illegal. Drug paraphernalia being thrown in public is illegal. Accosting individuals in public, in parks, in stores, on private properties such as Safeway, that's illegal. They're camping, wherever they're camping, is on someone else's property, so that's trespassing. That's already illegal. What we're talking about here is not criminalizing individuals or homelessness, but it seems to be a rampant escalation in all of these negative and illegal activities like that. I mean, last summer we couldn't even have the farmer's market open because a toilet, I forget what happened, the toilet was blown up or broken or deteriorating. And so the obvious question is, well, was it someone enjoying the farmer's market for Saturday and they decided to vandalize the park, or was it a homeless person that decided to vandalize the park? The answer is obvious. It's what it is. This is what we're here. I think we need to, this is my opinion, and I know no one on the dais is going to say, oh no, we need to let it ride, but we need to make a concerted effort that we need to stand behind developing a consensus that will bring it to its fastest conclusion. And people at the community at large don't deserve this. The people, the homeless population themselves don't deserve it. You know, if we continue to aid and abet their lifestyle by letting them shack up wherever and whenever and hide from help, I don't think that's a service to them either. And I'm not saying this judgmentally. All 7 of us up there want to see a good solution for everybody. I just exhort us to work together to find out how we can disincentivize, and there was a lot of good discussion there, how we can disincentivize this illegal behavior and move toward a solution. Thank you for that time. I appreciate it.
I think we need to start wrapping. Chelsea, thank you.
Thank you.
There are a couple of people that wanted to speak. If you can briefly, we're gonna, I think 4:30 at the max.
Yeah.
Yes, because we have an executive session after this.
We haven't heard from anybody who represents the very issue that we are meeting about.
Ma'am, I'm
Right
getting,
there.
Jennifer, I'm getting to it. I see him. Thank you. Hold on. This young man in the front.
My name is Paul Chance Dillon, I'm from Houston.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
Give me the name again.
Paul Chance Dillon, CHANCEDILLON. And I'm here because Pastor Clay and my friend Gunny that I met since I've been here invited me to come and speak. Since I became, let's say, put into a position to where I had to decide what I was going to do in Houston. I took care of my mom for the last 3 years of her life, and she passed away, and the people I was ministering to in that community reduced everything that my grandparents had left me and my mother had left me to ashes for $50 worth of copper. And I was sitting there with no money and a bicycle, and I said, well, what do I do now? And he said, just like the Roman general, learn the boats because where you're going is far more important than where you've been. And I said, okay, do I need to stay here in Houston, or can I go somewhere where it's cool for the summertime? Can I get out of this heat? I said, can I go to Colorado? He said, yeah. And I said, well, what are we doing? And he said, you have brothers and sisters everywhere that need encouragement. So I said, okay. And I said, but I got no gold in my pocket. I got no money. I got a bicycle. And he said, just go and I'll take care of it. And every step of the way, I've had people that have helped me along the way. And I just want to read a couple quotes from Thoreau. Thoreau said, none can be an impartial or wise observer of human life but from the vantage ground of what we should call voluntary poverty. I volunteered for this once I found myself in a position. What am I going to do, sit here and lick my wounds in the ashes or do something about it? And I found a mission kind of in going wherever I go to encourage people. I stayed a month in Denton when a lady who was called, she was a lieutenant in the military. She got arrested for trying to, she was shoplifting and trying to feed the people that she was a leader over. I stayed a month there taking care of her people until she came out, and I said, can I go now, Mama Lieutenant? She said, yeah, you're leaving the duty, you can go. So I left Denton and I continued to come here. I traveled 863 miles as a total to get to Trinidad. And when I got here, I met a lot of interesting people who were down and out and lost homes, and some of them had addictions. But everybody I meet is special in some unique way. They're amazing people, and most of them I now consider friends and family. I'm glad you guys are having the discussion. I've heard it said before that nobody really cares about what you know until they know that you care. And you guys having these meetings, y'all been working on it for 3 years, that means y'all care. The police department, I want to commend them because they've been friendly and helpful. They don't go out of their way to harass anybody that I've experienced. I don't consider myself a homeless person even though I'm in the trenches. I consider myself a person who volunteered to do this work by the man upstairs. He commissioned me and has trained me for a long time to do what I do in the trenches with the people I meet on a daily basis. So I identify with them, like Pastor Clay said. They're my people, but also I have a unique position to lead those people that they don't have. Most of them don't, but keep it short. I appreciate Pastor Clay. Really, that guy's essential because of what Thoreau said. The necessaries of life for man in this climate may accurately enough be distributed under the several heads of food, shelter, clothing, and fuel. For not till we have secured these are we prepared to entertain the true problems of life with freedom and a prospect of success. Those things, everybody's dealing with that. They're either hungry or it's cold. The fact that he brings propane for free of charge to people as long as they show up and get burritos against the propane.
1 minute, sir.
It's
Sorry
huge,
for
yeah.
interrupting. Thank you.
Probably went this long. But yeah, the fact that everybody's here trying, and the fact that I was given an opportunity to represent them, it's encouraging that you guys are trying to do something. One thing, this ain't gonna go away. It's gonna get worse. People are becoming more and more disillusioned by the American dream, and you can watch the movie Nomadland on Netflix to discover that. But thank you for listening. I
Thank you.
appreciate you giving me an audience.
Okay, young man. Sorry I had to
No,
stop
that's
you.
okay.
Okay.
Staff, council, mayor, some of you know me, my name's Keith the Merchant. I was raised here. My sister's raising her family here. And first of all, I'd like to make it known, I'm not here to attack anybody, be it council, be it our homeless community, be it the people trying to help the homeless community, but I am here to represent myself as well as thousands of other citizens who are just good tax-paying people who call this place home. And as much as I appreciate Mr. Williamson trying to get a hold of the situation in, I want to say 2011, me and two good friends of mine in Chimino Park were chased by a homeless man with a machete. He was, we ran to KFC, we didn't have cell phones, we ran to KFC, a guy working there was able to get a hold of him, hold him down until the cops got there. The cops then told our parents, oh yeah, this is the third time we've done this with this guy. There was no special council meeting held. I watched a probably 30-some-year-old gentleman beat a 16-year-old boy at Chimino Park 2 years ago. I was the one who called the cops, that should be on the record. There was no council meeting held. So one thing I would like to say is, personally, I'm disappointed in our elected officials that it did take somebody of status to have a negative interaction and a threatening interaction for a meeting to be called, because it seems that they happen often. I'm sure our police department will defend that statement. We don't get a special meeting called. So whether it was the intention or not, I do believe everyone in front of me has good intentions. Whether it was intention or not, what our officials have told the 8,000 some taxpayers is it didn't matter until it was one of our buddies. It didn't matter until it was somebody of status. And I know that opinion is held across many, many people, and that's something that should be aware of. Secondly, as Mr. Williamson said, I don't believe in criminalizing homelessness. I would hate to find myself in that situation, and if I did, I'm sure I'd be building a fire down by the river and trying to keep warm. I'm sure I'd be trying to stay in McDonald's until they kicked me out. I'm sure anybody would. However, why is it that a certain group has more rights than another group? Because again, if I were to have been the one to threaten Miss Epper with an axe, I'm pretty confident in saying that the book would be thrown at me. That would be felony menacing. I would lose my rights to vote. I would lose my rights to purchase a firearm, even if I was just having a bad day, or if I had a mental illness. I threatened somebody with a weapon. But I know the gentleman who did this, and I can guarantee I'll be seeing him back out on the streets. Felony menacing is 1 to 3 years. I will be seeing him back out on the streets. I know that. If I were to go drop trowel in the middle of Chimino Park and defecate, I'm pretty confident in saying I would be faced with sexual charges, with whatever charges. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But it does seem that we have no problem criminalizing a taxpaying citizen over something that is illegal. However, when somebody over here does something that is illegal, whether it's because the DA is unwilling to prosecute, which I understand that is not something you guys are in control of, or whether it's because they're tired, because the PD and council and everyone's tired of the repeat offenders. I mean, Mr. Bono was an educator, and I'm sure he can speak to how many students caused problems and caused consistent problems compared to, like, sometimes one guy might act out, but he was a good kid 99% of the time. And I just don't think that's right, and I don't know what the solution is, but criminalize the act, not the homeless, because it isn't fair to see, again, somebody attack somebody with an axe, and I could go shake his hand in a week, 2 weeks, what's it gonna be? But if me or any other taxpaying citizen were to attack somebody with an axe, entirely different situation, and I think that's a core of the big part of the issue at hand. And then to address, I love that we're moving forward with a place for them to go, because I'm lucky enough to be able to take care of over a dozen commercial properties here in town. And part of what I get to do is ask some people to move along and clean up the mess they leave behind. I can say I've tracked human fecal matter into my own pickup truck. That's my problem. I have been punctured with needles. That's my problem.
1 minute, sorry.
But it is great to see, where they're going to go, because that's the thing. I've kicked people out of property A for them to walk down the street to property B, to kick them out of property B for them to walk down the street to property C. They don't have anywhere to go. It's going to be 2 degrees next Saturday. That's miserable. But as we're trying to move forward with somewhere to go, I think it's preposterous to throw millions of dollars to expand Chimino Park when Chimino Park is the least likely place for anybody to want to go to recreate in this town. It's disgusting, I'm sorry. It's a gross place to be. I grew up there. And it's crazy because I used to get kicked out of there for riding a skateboard because there's a sign that says no skateboards. And I had PD come and remove me for that, but look at the state it's in now, and that's within my pretty short lifetime relatively. It's sad to see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This isn't, we can't go back and forth here. We'll be here till 8 o'clock tonight.
I was just hoping to make one statement about the guy with the axe.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry,
go
no
ahead.
comments from
No
the audience, I'm
comments, sir.
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Please.
Could I have 3 minutes? It won't even take the full 5.
Okay, Julie. One, and I'll take you, ma'am, after that, and that's it.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
This young lady is Julie Knutson.
With the Purgatory Watershed Partnership. And I wasn't being antsy when I raised my hands earlier.
No, that's
it
okay.
was to say that we can run the community service program. We already do that. People have come to us to ask if they can get community service credit for doing river cleanup. So, problem solved. We can run that. And I just wanted to acknowledge we've made a ton of progress. It may not feel like it, but the camps are a lot cleaner. We have a coordinator. Like, please acknowledge we're not stuck. We're rolling. This is awesome. I just want to celebrate that. Fundraising, let's not let money be the reason we try and shelve this. We are happy to write grants. Jen Lay has been successful with grants. A ton of our partners have been successful with grants. Like, let's dial this in the way we want it, and we will just start getting money a piece at a time to do it the way it needs to be done. So please, let's not let money be an issue. It is complex. Let's not be scared. Action is needed. PWP is working with the city and a ton of community members on exciting things coming for the Riverwalk. Just had another great talk with Jared the other day. A lot of cool developments are coming to the Riverwalk, and we've yet another reason why we have got to take action. I tell all of our monthly volunteers, step 1 was getting a coordinator done. Step 2 is finding a piece of land for the encampment. And the volunteers were really helpful. If we can't find city land, perhaps we could find county land and develop an MOU, or perhaps we could even find private land and fundraise to help buy it for the city in the spot that works perfectly. But a lot of people are already thinking outside the box of different ways we can do this. And a trial period is okay. Let's not not take action because we don't have the perfect solution. This is huge in ecological restoration. We move forward with the best plan we have, but adaptive management is like a whole career path of how you do something and you make adjustments as it goes. So, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Julie.
you.
Last but not least.
Okay, thank you for letting me speak. I will try not to take the full 5
Give us
as
your
well.
name first, ma'am.
My name is Shelby Gonzalez, and I'm also on the board for the coalition. I work in the victim advocacy realm as well as the mental health space and overall well-being. And I do just want to start by echoing a few sentiments. I get that this whole thing can be very scary. It does create a lot of fear when we're walking into the unknown. The parts of our city that we don't have figured out right. Even I've been scared, and I work with this population and have for a while. But what I can say is there's a lot of hope, and it's found right here in this room amongst you guys and amongst our partners and our board. I just want to preface by saying that I come from a very tiny village in New Mexico where there were 300 people. That's all there was. And I promise there's a point to that, but I grew up not having resources to deal with these very things. If you found yourself homeless, there was a lot of stigma. It was figure it out on your own, and that was that. In Trinidad, I used to work with ADA. We have a domestic violence sexual assault agency that most communities don't have. We have a plethora of resources for our youth, like a youth club, our consultants for children, after school programs, you name it, we've got it. You guys are aware of what we have. I know that we're a little over capacity in our medical and our mental health, but they exist. Where I come from, they don't at all. So what I can say is that social justice issues such as homelessness, substance use, mental health issues, those kinds of things are cyclical in nature. And if we can get these people, again, to echo another sentiment, if we can get them into a place where these services can come to them and we have those services in place, we'll be able to start helping our people, our citizens, get a job, fix their hygiene, get into medical, go to our local college where I work. Like, there are so many opportunities that can come if we pull together as a community and provide on a fair platform the resources that we have available in this city.
1 minute, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And then just like I said, we need to get them into a place. And I would like to kind of revisit, I know you said we're gridlocked, we're landlocked. But we've gone over a few places in the city, so if we could really rethink our strategy for inner city area, that would be great, because getting a whole transportation system in place to get them outside of the county where that would be ideal might be just as taxing as figuring out where we could put them inside. But the things that our homeless population need already exist, we just have to find a way to finish pulling it together. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it. I got a lot of good information, and it's an ongoing discussion, and we will continue.
Do you want our list? You said earlier that you were asking Detective Lay if we had a list. I'm sorry, I'm from the coalition as well, but we can give the council the list of the places.
It's not, if you give it to either Mr.
I think she's given it to them before at the development meetings.
Okay, all right, I'll get to it. I'll ask for it. Thank you.
We'll get it to them.
Okay.
Mr. Downs?
Thank you. Yes.
The speaker 2 people ago, young man that does property.
Yes.
And did we get his name? I missed it. If we did.
Yes, I believe it was Keith Merchant.
Keither.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Keither.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Council, let's take a 5-minute break. 4:45, we'll do the executive session. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, council. Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you all.
Thank you.